gather yourselves round a bit. Some of you can sit down and some can sit on the tables. Now, I just want to look at the blackboard with you first. Thank you for the card, Sarah, for everybody. Thank you. So if there's no room to sit on the tables, just sit on the floor for me. I just want us to have a quick talk about this. Because I think yesterday we reached a point where we were asking some pretty important questions. And something struck me that if today we worked on a sort of advisory service to workers, that you know how you felt yesterday, don't you? When the accountant said you have to listen to the money people about the problems of shoemaking as well. And it struck me that we might be able to make a room together where people who were worrying, like the people at Blackley and Broadene yesterday were worrying, could come and get some advice, you know, what we think. There's been a very famous book written called Future Shock. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Well, one of the things the man says in that book is that the people who could teach us a lot are the children. That children have very fresh minds about things. That they haven't had so much pushed into their heads that they've stopped thinking. You know? Because sometimes if you know a lot, it can stop you seeing new ways, can't it? So it struck me that we could say, all right, we'll agree with that book, and we'll say, well, if that man thinks the children could help us think about this problem, we'll see if the children can. Only, of course, you'd be working in two ways, wouldn't you? Because you are children, but you are also workers at Blackley and Broadene. So you know how it feels to be both. Would you agree?
Yes.
So I wrote some of the questions down that I might come to such a room for and try and get some advice on. But they're maybe not the right questions. If you think there are more questions we should add, I'll write them down. Does it help you if I read them aloud, or can you just read them quietly and see the implications? Remember the implications. Read them quietly. Tell me when you've read them all and if you think there should be other questions. You've read them all. Do you think the questions are all right?
Yes. Yes.
Are there any I've forgotten that occur to you that a worker might come and ask if you made a special room? You see, I think probably there's been a lot of books written and they could go to a library. But it's not the same for people to go to a library and try and find a book to answer questions for them, is it? As if they can come in and tap a worker on the shoulder and say, what do you think about this? And get a kind of talking it over thing. Anyway, if you think of any questions, tell me and we'll add them to this, or write them yourself if you think of them. Now, how do you think we could set this room up? I mean, should it be a room where it's like in a big public library where they keep workers working who care to think about these things? You're nodding, some of you. How do you see it then? If I walk in, you know, I'll come to talk about work, what would I see when I came in and you were the people helping?
You should see like a circle of chairs and tables and that in the middle.
There should be a circle of chairs and tables in the middle.
No, like a circle of chairs and tables in the middle of the room.
Yes, and what would be happening there?
And like someone could stand in the middle and put questions for us and that.
Would you be sitting quietly or would you be busy working? What do you think? Yeah.
Busy working.
Doing your work.
Yes.
So you'll be doing your Blackley and Broadene work.
Yes.
Would it help if some of the workers were doing the work like the very old-fashioned people used to do it?
Yes. Yes.
So some part of that room, there should be workers from, well, how far back would we go, do you think? I mean, do you want to go back to Roman sandal making, or
No.
not as far back as that?
I think as far as the people who have made pottery out of.
As far back as the people you've made the pottery of. Now, I'm not sure what date that works out at, do you? Oh, it goes back to where? About 1800. So some part of the room there'd be workers working like the folks of then, and some part of the room obviously there'd be workers working like the folks of now. Do you see any part of the room being workers in the future, or should that be left to? Yeah. Yes. You have made one or two machines which interest me very much, because in a way you've made the very machines in fun, you know, these fun machines about, you know, knock the cow on the head and you get a pair of blue shoes out the other end, which I think is a marvellous idea to think about. You've actually made the machines in fun that yesterday you wouldn't let the accountant fit up in your works, haven't you? Is that how you see the future, or is that just a funny future? A funny one. And yet, you know, as a housewife, when I looked at that, I thought, well, they've got instant heel bars, haven't they? You can take your shoe off and say to the man, mend my shoe. Have you seen those? In some shops. Well, there never used to be cobblers like that, where you could sort of take your shoe off and say, I'll stand with me, you know, with my foot up till you mend me shoe. And I thought, well, it would be rather nice if I could go along with my shopping basket, put my £4.50 in like you've got here, press the button for blue, black, brown or white, and then hold my basket up, and in 10 minutes or whatever time you think this reliable shoe machine makes shoes, have a pair come out at the other end. Can you see any advantage in that?
You wouldn't have to make them. No, because you wouldn't be able to choose what kind of shoe, really.
No, you don't be able to choose the colour.
You wouldn't be able to test it either, because you would have paid him when you wouldn't know whether they'd be strong.
Yes, and you wouldn't know if they were strong enough. So we're back to the old thing. You don't think instant shoes, even for once. I mean, do you think we could ever have throwaway shoes? Do you think people could come to find it useful to say, oh, I'll just buy a pair of shoes on the way to work, they'll do for tonight, and then, you know, we can throw them away. They'll look beautiful, they'll look nice, but they won't last, but I can chuck them away tomorrow. You don't think?
I know, because they would still be expensive, they wouldn't be wasting money.
Well, I don't know whether they would be expensive. They maybe can make paper look like leather, you see. Of course, it's expensive on trees, I realise that, but leather's expensive on cows, isn't it? And things. They were talking about paper clothes at one time, and I know there are some hotels in America where if you get, you know, where you have to stay a night and you don't have your pyjama and nightie with you, you can actually buy a pair of paper ones or a paper nightie. Sarah doesn't seem to fancy it. But I've never had to do that, but they say they feel quite nice to wear, and you just, you know, you can just sort of pull them apart afterwards. Anyway, can you set this room up with the people who think they want to work like the very early shoemakers that we've made the models of, and those who want to work in now time, and settle it round the way you think it should be, and then we'll see what it's like if somebody comes in and starts questioning for the future. Can you do it without me?
Yes.
Tell you what I'll do then, I'll just stand here and you give me a shout if you need any help. Move anything you need, I'll take the special shoe machine away. I'm beginning to have ideas about this, you know, really. Just get what you need, and I can move these if you want. If you want these tables, you know, I can move that. You've You've got to stand up, have you? I think maybe standing up or sitting down depends upon what is the most efficient way of working so that a person could come and get help. Can I just say something? I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're in danger at this moment of making this room feel like school. So be very careful that when you make your bench, it is a cobbler's bench and not a school table. Do you see what I mean? Just in your mind. Don't fall into those traps of sitting down like this is a, you know, we're just going to do some writing work. So only have the chair by the table if that's what you really need in a room where a worker comes and says, excuse me, I'm a bit worried about the future. So think very carefully about that. And if you need more tables, I can clear this for you. Is it possible for me to ask you who are going to be the very early workers? You're the very early workers, and you're the very early workers, and you're the very early workers. You want to be all the very old-fashioned workers? All right. Well, it doesn't matter because we can have something in the room that suggests Blackley and Broadene, can't we, if we want it? I'll give that a think whilst you set up now. Which of these are you going to deal with? You better just check which questions you feel you could give advice on. Now that I shall have to insist is all dealt with. You know, even as the very old workers, that every one of these questions can be dealt with by you, by somebody in the room. Has anybody got one they think they'd like to deal with in discussion with workers who come in? Which would you like to deal with, Tracy?
What is work?
What is work? So Tracy's going to deal with what is work. I'll make a notice for your back in a minute so that anybody coming in knows if they want to talk about that, it's to Tracy they would come, wouldn't it? What are you dealing with, Sarah?
Why do we work?
Why do we work? And what are you dealing with, John?
Why do we work?
Well then, that's a male point of view and a female point of view. Because they may be different. Sometimes men and women do think a bit differently, don't they, about things?
What is work?
What is work? So you're going to handle what is work as well as Tracy. What about you ladies? What should work be like? Are you interested in that one as well? What work should be like?
Why do we have to work?
Why do we have to work? Yes. What about any of this? I think this is going to be important here, don't you? And this one, because you've chosen to be past workers. Workers who now we celebrate because they made the shoes of the past and they are now dead and their skills live in the modern people. What were you going to say, Lynn?
What should work be like?
What should work be like? Yes, so Samantha and you are dealing with that. What about you? What do you think you'd like to handle? Some of these questions you may feel are a bit hard at the beginning, in which case we can get on to them later on, you know. Somebody asked that yesterday, why do things have to change? Yes?
Can we learn from the past?
Can we learn from the past? Yes. Can workers now help future workers? Yes. Yes. So you'll handle that. Now when we say we'll handle it, we don't have to be perfect because I don't know how to do this as well, do you? I mean, I can only think about how I might help people. Are there any ones we haven't dealt with?
What is important about change?
Yes, nobody's dealing with that yet. That might be very tricky.
Can change be made good?
And can change be made good for people?
Future workers?
Yes. Now, is there anybody feels they could take that on and struggle with it? You'd be prepared to. Which would you be prepared to take on, Tracy?
What is important about change?
What is important about change? So you've changed what you're doing now and you're dealing with that one. Grand.
Advice for future workers.
And some advice to future workers. Now, what I'm going to do then is, as I will come round whilst you get on with your work and talking over how you might answer a worker, we'll get labels made for the questions you're prepared to deal with. So that if a strange worker came in, you know, who maybe, they wouldn't just be cobblers, would they, who came in, and shoemakers, they could be anybody. I mean, if I were a shipyard worker, you wouldn't mind helping me with my work worries, would you? All right, well, you discuss how you're going to organise this, and I'll get the paper so that we can just get our notices written. You'll need a notice to write on the questions you're prepared to deal with, won't you? Right, you can go and get yourself some pencils over there. So write down the question you're prepared to deal with. Yes, they're over there. Or pencils, just help yourself. We only need it so that you remember what it is you're dealing with. And if anybody has trouble, you know, getting it written quick, I've got pins, and when you've got it written, we'll pin them on ourselves. Yes, love? We'll have to pin them on ourselves, you see. Do you think I should have one on, or should I be the worker who first comes round and asks? Write down the question you're prepared to deal with. Otherwise, I won't know what to ask you. You see. Then we learn from the past you're dealing with, right? I'll move those out of your way. Thank you. And of course, if you need anything to help you, yes, dear, help yourself. I realise I've not put anything in here about having jokes about work. I'm just wondering if there should be anybody to help you laugh about your work. I didn't think about that one. Are you ready for yours pinning on? Shall I pin it on your back, or would you like it? You'd like it on your front, so that it'd be more comfortable on your back. And pin it fairly high, and then if you happen to work sitting down, Now I know as a worker that this lady would help me think about what work should be like. Anybody else ready for having a... Now you can go on working now, can't you, and sing or whatever you do when you work. So that we know work should be like, what you're doing. Are you ready? Come on then, where do you want your thing? On your back. Why do we work? Do we have to work? Yes, love, what were you asking me? You ready? Right. If you think you can pin them on each other, take some pins and do it. If you can't trust yourself with pins, then don't do it. Why do we work and do we have to work? So that's the question. Now, what shall we do with this? Shall we pop it that way? Or shall I tuck it down the back so that it doesn't hang over your words? Right. Excuse me, I shall just have to sort of do this. I'll take one pin out. I didn't notice that was silly of me, wasn't it? But you obviously would need your hair comfortable. Can you help pin each other up, or shall I do it? You're doing it for yourselves. You want me to do it? All right. Well, I'll just write it bigger. Or I know what it means. If that's all right to you, it's all right to me. Later on, when we get established, we'll have these notices printed, of course, and do it properly. But it'll do in handwriting till we see. Right. Can you pass me 2 pins, love? Advice to future workers. Now, once you've got it pinned on, can you find yourself a place to work under these very old-fashioned conditions? you'll have to consider all those old cobbler shops you've been to see and how people are, won't you? You'll have to work like they did, won't you? If you want to live in that time, a man can only work in the time he lives, can't he? In that sense. Why do we work? So we've got a really busy cobbler's shop going. Thank you. I think I'll take 2 pins. Advice to future workers. This is the sort of thing that we'll get better at as we go on. Like those things. Why do we work? Just can you turn around a bit more?
I'll try.
Now, shall I take away the pencils, or do you need them for your old-fashioned work? Thank you. Anybody else? Do you think it's helpful if we spread out a bit, so that if you got a right crushing one day, if there was a right big worry on one day, that you got a lot of visitors? You can do what you think, but anything you need. Build your own old cobbler's shop. You see, have anything you need. So take away the pens and then they don't make it look modern, and then work where you think will help you best. If you think a low stool would help you, then go away from a table. Think of those places you saw in York, you know. Right. And how the workers might have had to be. What should work? Yes, you don't have to be groups, do you? Because you're a worker giving advice to another worker. What is important about change? What is work? Oh, that's all right. I'm assuming you like it on your back. That way people can see you without you looking like you're a dolly. Labelled up. Right, now you're ready to start your cobbler's shop somewhere, aren't you? My advice seriously would be to you to get away from one another, you know, so that you can really make your own mind and your own understanding function. What should work be like? My advice really would be to get away from each other. I'm serious. To make a dream in your mind of the cobbler's shop you want. You can have a little table. Let's see if I can find you one. Is this your cobbler's shop that you've just made? She's just made that for herself. There's lots more chairs here, look. There's 2 more chairs here. And I think there's a table I can find. Yes, there's a table here. I'll get you a table. And we're trying to get that feeling of the old-fashioned clothes, aren't we? Can you help stand it up? Sort of, the feeling in your mind of a long, long, long time ago. Yes. Well, I'll tell you what, let me give you this one. Let's just put these on the floor. Yes, just as you like, as long as it's getting you started. Now, where would you like this? In a space for you?
Yeah.
About here? About here?
Yes.
Right. You're going to stand to work. Do you want this in a bit? You can do just what you think it matters. I find sometimes when you're struggling to get this old-fashioned feeling, you can, if you wanted, just talk quietly to yourself. You know, it doesn't matter if everybody's talking at once. so that you talk about the things that you're thinking about. Bearing in mind, you are those people who've chosen to help other workers. And I'm going to be very quiet now and settle down so that this old-fashioned cobbling can begin. Do you think you could tell me when you feel you're ready for the first worker to come in? So that I don't come in till you feel you're ready to handle the first worker. Keep remembering that question on your back, won't you? Keep your mind working on that question. And of course all the natural noises of good work going on can happen, can't they? I mean, if people whistle, they whistle, and if they sing, they sing, and if they hammer, they hammer. Think you're ready to deal with a visitor now?
Yes.
I'll go around to the big double doors over there. Then you'll know that that's where the strangers will always come in. Excuse me, can you ask anybody about things?
Yes.
Thank you. Excuse me, I wonder if you could just help me. I've got a boy, you know, who's just left school, and you know, I would like him to work, like his dad's always worked. But we're always sort of having arguments because he keeps saying, I don't have to work, you know, I don't have to work. And I really don't know what to say to him.
Well, you could just say, if you don't work, you don't get money for food, and you might die.
Well, I've tried that, you see, but then he says, well, you'll have the dinner on the table, man, you know, and I don't really know what to say about that.
Just sitting around watching telly.
Well, I've said that, you know, I've said that to him and all, but he doesn't seem to understand, because he thinks it's nicer to play, really. You know, he likes these space machines and that. You know, them new things. I really don't know how to convince him that it'd be better for him, you know. But he says that's all in the past. Like you folk, you worked a long time ago, I understand.
Well, Tom, let's say you have to go away. He has to work for yourself. Where are you going to get all the money from if you go away somewhere?
You go on a holiday and he has to stay here and work and he doesn't know where to get a job.
So you think I should really hold the money thing over his head?
Yeah.
That no work, no pay. Because he does work at some things. I mean, he works at his stamp collection and that.
He doesn't get paid for his stamp collection, for his stamps. He has to give people the money to buy them.
Yes, but he reckons it's hard work, you know. And I don't know what to answer when he says, well, why can't I be paid for this work?
Well, if he doesn't go to work, he'll not be able to get any money for going on the Space Invaders and everything like that.
No, well, I can't keep him up with Space Invaders. I mean, it's 20p a time, isn't it? So you think I should just say, work is money, and you've got to get money for your work? They do say that a long while back, people used to say, well, if you give me food, I'll cut your trees down, you know, and they worked for other things than money, but I don't know if that's possible now.
You only get like 10 pence, 5 pences, 20 pences for doing jobs. When you work, you get £3.
So they get £20 a week or something like that.
Yeah, I suppose in them days food was enough, was it? You think we need more money today?
Because food's so expensive now.
Everything is going up.
They say so, yes. Was it expensive in your day?
Well, for the money which we had, yes.
Was it? Yes. Yes, I suppose for the money you had, the food was, yeah. Well, thank you very much. If I send my boy in, you wouldn't mind having a word with him? No, thank you. I'm sorry I've interrupted your work. Excuse me. I've always wondered about this. You know, what work is.
Well, I just think it's something that you've got to do, really.
Well, my mother used to say that, you've got to work.
Because you've got to work to earn your living, really, so it's not worth not working.
No. Well, I've always worked myself, but sometimes I've wondered, you know, well, what is this thing I'm doing? Sometimes I don't know the difference between when I'm working and when I'm playing. You know, sometimes I enjoy it and it doesn't feel like work. Have you worked out what work is in that way?
Well, sort of. Working, you've got to do it. If you get a job given, you've got to do it, or you don't have to play.
I see. It's when it has to be done, not just when you want to do it. Oh, that's maybe what the difference is when I've enjoyed it more. Maybe. Do you find you can enjoy it even when it has to be done? Can you? You enjoy this, do you? Because it looks a very hard life all these people have. You don't look very wealthy, you cobblers.
Well, I enjoy it.
Yeah, well, how do you manage on bad days?
Well, sort of, you've just got to sort of get on with what you've got.
Make the best of it. Accept the conditions and rejoice, sort of thing. Yes, maybe I'm not very good at that. Have you got any idea about how I could learn to do that? Sort of enjoy it when I don't feel like it?
Well, you've just got to think about enjoying things. Just got to think as if you're enjoying it.
And that helps you to enjoy it, does it? Oh. Maybe more folks should know about that. Well, can you give me an example of how you do think when you're trying to enjoy it?
Well, you just really concentrate on what you're doing and think about something happy about your work.
Find the positive in it. Well, maybe that might stop me grumbling a bit. I don't know. Is that what you do all the time? You actually have to do it for yourself? I see. You sound as if work's in your mind then. That's what it is. It's what you make it. Excuse me, miss, could I just borrow this for a minute? Thank you. I wonder if you could help me. I've got a problem over... They want to change our shoe factory round. And I see that you're thinking about what's important about change, and I'm very worried about this change because it looks like I'm not going to be able to go on working like I did before. I mean, is change important? They keep saying it's important.
It's important because if you want to do it, you can do it, but if you don't want to do it, you can't really do it, and you can't really enjoy it or nothing like that.
Would your advice be to let them go ahead and change the way I do things?
No, I'd try and stop them.
Would you?
Yeah.
Have you got any advice on how? You see, we tried talk. There was a financial man came, and we talked to him yesterday, but he didn't seem to listen much. He seemed to be telling us, look, it's important to move with the times, he kept saying. You know, move with the times and don't be old-fashioned, he kept saying. But I couldn't see what I could do.
Well, if it was your own shoe factory or your shoe shop or anything like that, you should be allowed to keep it the way you want it to be.
Well, that's what I thought, but they say they keep changing the laws and the rules and that. You know, I don't know who they are. Do you know who changes the rules? Did they change rules when you were working in this old-fashioned shop?
But you were supposed to be bring machines and everything in this shop now.
Are you going to go with the change then?
No, I wanted to change.
You didn't want it to change. Well, I'm in exactly the same boat. I don't know how to stop change. You know, I went home last night and as I was making the supper, I thought, well, you know, is it right to resist that man? And then I thought, well, how will I do it if I want to?
Well, like, if you didn't want to work, you just didn't work, and that was that.
The trouble is, you see, with it's the money. I feel as if I want to work. You know, I've got used to working. I don't know that I'm in a position to say, well, I'm not going to work now.
Well, if you feel you want to work, you should work.
If they'll let you. But as I said, I was saying to some of my mates, I said, well, you know, lasses, if these machines come, we might get, you know, some of us lose our jobs, but I still want to work.
Well, if it was your like factory, that you should they should let you have on who you want to work with you.
Well, it isn't my factory, but they do say that the man that owns the factory can't afford it. You see, he can't afford to keep on the old ways. So they've been looking for cheaper ways, you see, and that's what they've come up with, this new way.
Well, is someone going to buy it off him?
I don't know, I never did get the hang of it, but there was a man in looking at all the money and the wages and what the packaging cost, you know.
Well, if he wanted to change it, he could change it, and then you couldn't do anything about it.
So you think I'd just have to go along with it? Don't look too bright, does it? Oh, and though he did keep saying things could be nicer, like he was talking about paper shoes. You know. But I don't know whether I want to make paper shoes. I don't know. I mean, would you consider it? You wouldn't even think about it? I don't know how it'll be in the future, you see. Do you think there's anything I could do to sort of help the change when it comes, you know?
Well, you could like just go along with it and just get on with your work. It's just like...
So even if I didn't want to make paper shoes, I might find out it was all right to make paper shoes. Is that what some of these people did in their day? Let's see. Well, thank you very much for your attention. Can you give me any advice on what work should be like?
Well, it shouldn't be too hard, it shouldn't be too easy for the person who's working, because if it was too easy, you wouldn't
give them the job that they like doing and the special ability.
Well, somebody over there was saying that you have to be able to make yourself like any work. If it's given you, you should do what you've got to do.
Well, I agree with her, yes.
Do you? Do you find you can do that?
Yes, well, you know, we're quite happy with our work, and we like what we're doing. I mean, at the beginning, I didn't really like our job, but I enjoy it now. So do I.
I wonder what it is that changes something from not being pleasant to being pleasant.
It's just when you do the job for a long time, you get used to doing it and you like doing it.
And then you start to like doing it.
Somebody was saying that if you have to do it for a long time, you'd get bored and do it badly.
No,
Well,
I think if you do it for a long time, you get used to it. And
Yeah,
like
you get very used to it. Like, well, we don't usually do all the same things at the same time. We sort of we do like sleigh harnesses, not just shoes. We just do different things.
But isn't that because the firm lets you do that? Because you see, I work for a firm that they think we won't be able to do that anymore, and they're saying, you know, what we're going to do now is have only shoes, and we're going to have more machines to help us, you know.
Well, if I would, well, last week we had a man saying, persuading us for shows, and we were protesting, we were saying, well, no, we don't want to. I mean, it was the accountant, we were saying, no, we don't want to, because we've got to
you know, we've got to, we want to stay old-fashioned with protest.
And did he say that was all right?
Well, he was persuading us.
Well, that's been the same with us, you see, because they're saying we've got to move with the times. In fact, they were saying that the old-fashioned cobblers have moved with the times, you know. They've gone... Yes. But you're using modern glues, are you?
Well, we don't glue. We don't use any glue.
Don't you? Well, what will you do if they start wanting you to glue?
Well, we'll say no, we don't want to glue. We want to stay stitching and things like that.
I see. So your advice is resist?
Yes.
Yeah.
Unto death?
Yes.
Really? I mean, seriously?
Yes.
Because they say you can get into terrible trouble for resisting.
Well, it's that if what you want really, if you want something not to happen, what's going to happen, you've got to do what you should, what you want.
You mean as an individual, you've got to stand up for what you think?
Yes. I mean, we haven't just dropped back and agreed.
I know.
No, you've not,
giving
have
up.
you? Well, we don't know what to do, really. That's why I came along to this advice room.
If you like sewing without machines, you should just
But he was saying that if we want to go on the way we are, nobody can afford our things. And I don't know whether I just want to go on sewing if nobody wants them, you know. Well, they may want them, but they can't buy them.
Because they do get, well, things do get dear, you know. And at these times, I think everything's really dear and no one wants to buy them.
No, well, what are
wouldn't
you doing about that? I mean, are you making your stitching cheaper?
Well, probably. We're not going to give up.
You're not? You're saying fight on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
We're trying not to give up
On things like machines.
One of the things the accountant did say, though, was, and I must say I had to listen to him, he said, if the doctors never tried new things, you know, we'd still not be able to take legs off.
I know, but it's...
And eyes and new kidneys and that.
I know, but
I found it very difficult to answer that when he said that, because I thought, well, if the doctors agree to changing things round, maybe
I know, but that's doctors.
We aren't doctors, we
We're
are
not
shoemakers. We are in completely different things to shoemakers and to doctors.
well, I can see we're in a different job, yes, but I'm thinking, are we different when it comes to trial and error and new ideas, you see?
Well, it all really depends.
Well, it depends what job you're doing.
Does it?
If you're doing a
Because
job
somebody
like
was sort of
doctors,
saying, look, the doctors have tried new kinds of sewing threads over the last 50 years, and certainly since the last war. Now, if they hadn't have tried plastic thread, you know, we'd have been very short of sewing for operations now. Now, I couldn't help but notice that in, you know, thinking about shoes.
But it's different in sort of a shoe firm because it depends what job it is. Like a doctor, a nurse and things like that have got to have special equipment. But if we like sewing or stitching by hand, it's best to do what the whole firm wants to do.
Well, I think the doctor said, but the modern thread is better. But the only way they could find out was try it, you know. And they tried it inside people's bodies.
Well, we, in modern times now, we are still old-fashioned, so we can keep on going on old-fashioned if we've got this far.
Yes.
You think so?
Yes.
Yeah?
Well,
And we'll not give up because
We're not gonna give up.
sewing
your
by
advice
hand.
is to stick out for what you think you should
We
have.
like our job, and we've got to stick to what we want. We've got to try. We've got to try our best.
They do say the world has a habit of walking past you, though. You know. And you find yourself sort of stuck out and you didn't notice it had gone past.
Well, some people might like old-fashioned shoes. I mean, lots of people buy our shoes.
We got lots of orders
now in modern
for
times.
people buying them. But even
So the
if
world hasn't quite gone past good shoes yet.
but even if we wanted to make machines, you can't really see that we put all the work into making them. Even if they would go, even if it would be quicker to do them.
Oh, I would love one, thank you very much. No, thank you, dear. No, this is lovely. I like it. Just plain. Thank you very much. Well, I'll go away and think about that, but I don't know if I have the courage to resist change.
Well,
Oh, wait, about FUMA.
well, you've
But
really...
where does courage come from? You know, I feel I want to go along with things for peace and quiet, you know.
Well, if it's what you want, you've just got to try and do it. I mean, we've gone this far, and we've just picked up courage and just said to the people, well, we want to stay, we want to do what we want to do. And
One of my problems is I'm not sure I know what I want.
well,
Are you good at knowing what you want?
Well, we
we
just
have
learn
to think about it. We have to think about it. Well, why don't you go away and think about it and come back some other time?
Yes, I think I will. Well, I'm already thinking about it now. I will. I'll go away and think about it.
Okay.
People, can I just interrupt? I haven't been able to visit everybody because I find, you know, one question leads to another. Do you think you'd trust me with this room now, supposing I knew all these questions, not necessarily the answers? Do you think we could have a look at what happens in this room, supposing it was lunch break and the workers had to leave and I was minding the shop, and I would try and answer any questions anybody brought in, you know, about work? Do you think you'd like to be the workers now who come in to enquire? Now, of course, I won't be able to handle all the questions, so what might happen is, if somebody asks a question and I don't know the answer, somebody else who's come in to ask one might know an answer to somebody else's question. Do you see what I mean? Now, can you remember the sorts of questions that are on your backs? Right, so we don't need to take those off. I'll have these questions to help me mind the shop. You think about the questions that matter to people in the north now, that if you were working at this time, you might come to this room to talk it over. Right? And of course we know where the door is, and I'll just mind the shop. And then when anybody comes in, we'll all help each other think about these big questions. And we're only going to ask what we think grown-up people need to know at this time that will help them forward. Where shall I be to mind the shop? In the middle here. I'll just put my handbag away because I now work here. Can you advise me on what I should be doing to encourage these people?
Could we lace a shoe off?
Lacing a shoe up. So these are the northeast workers who are considering the nature of work in the northeast at the moment, right? Hello. I'm sorry a lot of the workers have had to go away, but if I can help you. There's a tea urn there if you want to help yourselves to a drink whilst you're thinking it over. Hello.
I was just wondering, well, our firm's just had new machines put in, and I wondered if that change would be good for us or not.
Is this the right place to come to?
Well, it certainly is an advisory service, as far as we know, but we're not very sure what to advise yet. You know, we're very new here. What was it? You've had new machinery.
And we don't know, well, we haven't got used to them, and we don't really, enjoy them as much as our own hand sewing things, and many of us have lost our jobs, and we wondered if it was good for people to have new changes.
Yes, that's a very big question. Have you reached any conclusions yourselves about how you could manage to help yourselves?
Well, just pick up courage and say, well, we want to get rid of, if we want to get rid of them, I want to get rid of them. We don't enjoy it.
This lady seems to think you should not accept what's coming.
Well, you know, if you want it.
If you didn't want the machines, you should just tell your manager that you don't want them and you like to go back to to.
Well, maybe you three could help one another, and I'll see to these gentlemen. Yes, can I help you?
We're looking for a job. Nobody.
You're looking for a job.
Nobody would take on.
Have you had work before?
Yes. In a factory.
We don't actually have jobs here available. Have you tried all the places for work? Where have you been?
So in the job centre.
You've been to the job centre and the docks.
They've set up here because there's 1 or 2 spaces.
Well, this is really just a workroom to try and talk things over. Is there anything you could do to help yourselves? Have you tried everything you can think of? I wonder if anybody could help these gentlemen. They've come hoping I could give them work, but unfortunately we don't have that kind of work here. We just have representatives, you know. And I'm just wondering if anybody has any advice. Are you feeling very low about it, or...?
Yes. We're not getting much work in our factory because everyone's getting made redundant. We've been looking for 3 months.
You've been looking for 3 months. I wonder if there's anybody else you could see. I do get quite a lot of people in wondering about this, and I keep wondering, well, where else could they go? If they've been local, you know, where you could go to try and talk to somebody else about it. I don't know whether Mrs. Thatcher sees people like that, do you? Or...
the place is nowhere to get in, no fun, because there's not many jobs being taken.
Yes. What is it that makes you want a job?
Well, we've been afraid that factories will not take one because most of the people there are being redundant. Why we want a job is to get the money for our wives and our kids.
Do you get assistance with that? Do you get any money from anywhere? Yes. Is it not?
Nobody works in
There's nobody working in your house, so you're getting money. Well, I've always wondered where this dole money comes from. Yeah, it comes out of the rates, does it? I see. You don't think you could manage on that?
Well, by the time we get with food and not to pay the rent for the house.
Yeah. We're trying hard for long distance
But
phone calls.
is the family allowance not enough? We're not having enough money to pay the phone bill.
No, mate.
And then
Have you considered having the phone taken out?
No.
Do you think the phone is essential?
Is family allowance enough?
I don't know how much family allowance is.
It's £4 for each child you get.
Yeah. And you think this isn't enough? People are talking, you know. I don't know, of course, because I'm just minding the shop, you know. The normal workers are not here. People do say that in the future, people won't need to work like they used to. Have you considered this as a career? That there are other ways of using one's time? Yes. Do you mean that there isn't anything nearby that you could find to do? Could I make a suggestion to you, but I don't know whether you think this would be a good idea for England. I know a hospital where a lot of sick children, oh, thank you very much, where a lot of sick children are. Now, I know that they're always wanting help, but of course they haven't any money. Is this a job you think would be worth doing?
Yes. As long as we get money for it.
Well, that's the snag you see at the moment. I'm not sure how I could get anybody to give you any money for that. It seems that there are some jobs you can do and you get money for it, And there are other jobs that you could do, but there isn't any money for it. And people are wondering if this might be the future way, that jobs without being paid might become a new way for workers.
But like they say, on the door, you hardly get any money because by the time you pay the rent and the gas bills, you're only left with about £5, and then when you get your food and all that, you're left with less again.
Yes, I can understand that. I'm just wondering if there was any way these people who can't even go out, you know, and walk about and such, or you know, whether there is work to be found that we could try to get done in some way.
Some people can't be bothered to go out and look for jobs.
Actually, I don't know.
I've been redundant for 2 months now. They've got machines in our factory. There's only about 7 people left in our factory now because of all the machines.
You're sort of redundant on money work. Have you been around and seen what needs doing in the world?
I tried to get jobs to dressmaker, but they got somebody else instead. All the money that come back later. We'll send you a letter if you want to come back, because I have to say someone else, but somebody's got it. My friend and I have been to London, but it's worse than what it is here.
You've been even as far as London, have you?
Been to Aberdeen looking for a
I'll
job.
tell you what I can't understand, and of course you do realise I'm not an expert. The workers are at lunch, you know. When there's so much needs doing, why can't people work at what needs doing?
I tried to get jobs in missionary, but that doesn't give you any reward because it's voluntary and it doesn't really keep the family
Yes.
going. They would have to work for themselves.
Yes, I wonder what missionaries do.
London.
Pardon?
Because I went down to London and Southampton, couldn't get a job, and all over.
It's a very long way. You must have used a lot of money to go down there as well.
The
Yes.
only money that we get now is we go around the houses asking if there's any jobs we can do for them.
I wonder if these ladies could help. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, is it all ladies there? Could you just, a thought has struck me, but I don't quite know what to do about this. The gentlemen say that they would be quite happy to, you see, they've had trouble getting work, and I understand some of you may have had the same trouble. They agree that there's a lot of work needs doing. I'm sure you can think of the work that needs doing. You were talking about being a missionary. And I was wondering about the number of sick children or mentally handicapped children that need personal help, you know. What we can't understand is why that work doesn't get paid for. Because you were saying they wouldn't, you see, I said, well, the hospital may not have the money to pay you, but they'd be very happy for your work.
It might be voluntary work. They might not know it might be voluntary.
What I can't understand is why looking after sick children is voluntary, but making shoes is paid. Because I'd have thought sick children need it more than shoes.
I think that is just a job that you should do anyway. Job just to help people, so they won't give you any money. I think it's more they might use that money for buy something for the sick child. To buy kidney machines. There's more machines there. But I quite get machines. I quite understand that maybe they're saving up for like a kidney machine and won't pay them.
But missionary work isn't all that. Well, many people don't want to have missionary work, so they just give it up, and people don't think that they'll do the job. Hardly any countries need missionary work and don't allow missionary.